Hi everyone and welcome to the Coruscant Tribune for this video about Sabacc Corellian Spike. In this video we're going to show you everything we know about this card game and we'll show you the rules we've created to make this game 100% playable. In the description you'll find our rulebook and also the files you'll need to print and create your own deck of Corellian Spike. Before we start, this version of Sabacc is the one we can see in the film Solo: A Star Wars Story, the book Tales from Vandor, or the reference book The Last Jedi, Rose Tico, Resistance Fighter. For those who already know about classic Sabacc that we can see both in Legends and in Canon, you'll find some similarities in the gameplay, but Corellian Spike still has important differences. So, the deck is made of 62 cards. There are 30 green positive cards that consist of 3 series of cards from 1 to 10 with different symbols: circle, square and triangle. We have the same number of red negative cards, which means also 30 red cards. Finally, there are 2 cards with a value of 0, which are called Psylop, an old word in ancient Corellian that means idiot. This deck is quite different compared to classic Sabacc. In this version, the Sabacc deck is made of 76 cards, 60 cards from 1 to 15 in 4 series: staves, sabers, flasks and coins, and 8 special cards. In Corellian Spike you have to be the closest to 0 as possible and have the best hand. Like in classic Sabacc, players can lose their hands at each turn, because spiked dice can alter the course of the game. Indeed, if the dice are rolled and show matching symbols, all players lose their hands and get new ones with the same number of cards. These dice are 6-sided dice with symbols representing numbers 1 to 6. Then it's possible to play with regular dice. It often happens during the spike phase to lose a promising hand, or on the contrary, to get a new hand that will save the day. Before we start a game, it's important to know how winning hands work in a Corellian Spike game. First, you have to be the closest to 0. This is called a null rec. For example, the first player has a hand with a -5 and a +6, total value of +1. The second player has a hand with a -1, -5, +3 and +5, total value of +2. The first player's total of +1 is the closest to 0, so he's the winner for this round. Then, for the same value, positive total always beats a -1. For example, the first player's hand is -1, -2 and +4, total value of +1. The second player's hand is -4, -5 and +8, total value of -1. They both have a value of 1, but the first player wins thanks to his positive total. If 2 players have the same total, value and sign, the hand with the most cards wins. For example, the first player's hand is -2, +4, +6 and -7, total value of +1. The second player's hand is -2, -5 and +8, total value of +1 as well. However, the first player has 4 cards, which is more than the second player's 3 cards. The first player wins. If 2 players both have the exact same total and number of cards, we have to calculate the total value of their positive cards. The first player has a positive total of 10 made with his 2 cards +6 and +4. The second player has only 1 positive card, a +9. The first player's positive total is higher than the second player's, so the first player wins. If 2 players have the same positive total, we have to compare the highest positive card in both hands. The first player's hand is +10, +2, -4 and -7, total value of +1, positive total of 12. The second player's hand is +9, +3, -5 and -6, total value of +1, positive total of 12 also. However, the first player's highest positive card is a +10, while the second player's is a +9, which makes the first player the winner for this round. When a hand reaches 0, it is called a Sabacc. To distinguish multiple Sabacc hands, we follow the same hierarchy as for null rec hands. First, we compare the number of cards, then the total of positive cards, and finally the highest positive card. The best Sabacc hand is one with a pair. For example here, +3, +3, -6, total value of 0. If there are multiple Sabacc hands with a pair, the pair closest to 0 wins. Now, we move on with difficult hands, starting with the rule of 2. This hand has a total value of 0 with 2 pairs, like in this example, +3, +3, -5, +5, -6. Above rule of 2 there is the Bantha's Wild. This hand is equal to 0 with a 3 of the kind. Here we have +4, +4, +4, -9 and -3. Above Bantha's Wild there is a hand called Straight Chiron, or Straight Staves. This is the hand that Han plays during his game against Lando Calrissian and Vandor 1. This is a straight made of 4 cards in sequential order, still equal to 0. When there are several Straight Chiron, the hand with the first card closest to 0 wins. Above Straight Chiron there is the G-Wiz. This hand is made of 5 cards. Either +1, +2, +3, +4, -10, or the opposite, -1, -2, -3, -4 and +10. with still a total value of 0. Above dues there is the squadron. This is a 4 of a kind, equal to 0. 4 identical cards including 2 positive cards and 2 negative cards. When there are multiple squadrons, the 4 of a kind which is closest to 0 wins. Above squadron there is the Rylet. This hand has 5 cards with a positive 3 of the kind and a negative pair, or a negative 3 of the kind and a positive pair. This hand could be called a full house and is still equal to 0. If there are multiple Rylet, the 3 of a kind which is the closest to 0 wins. Above Rylet there is the Yeehaw. This hand is a pair with a green Psylop, total value of 0. If there is more than one Yeehaw, the pair closest to 0 wins. Above Yeehaw there is the Fleet, a 4 of the kind, except for 10s, with 2 positive cards and 2 negative cards, and a green Psylop, total value of 0. The 4 of the kind that's the closest to 0 determines the best fleet. When a green Psylop comes with a 4 of a kind of 10s, 2 positive, 2 negative, total value of 0, it is called a full Sabacc. This is the second best hand in the game. Lander Calrissian plays it against Han Solo and Vandor 1. The best hand in the game is called Pure Sabacc, a 2 cards hand with a 2 green Psylop. If several players are in a tie, which means that everything we just described wasn't enough to show who's the winner, the tied players have to draw new cards. The closest card to 0 wins the round. A positive number always wins against a negative number. In the Yareth Casino variant of Corellian Spike, there are different hands and rules that you can find in our rulebook. Here, we're going to use classic rules. Now that you know which are the best hands, we're going to show you a game of Sabacc to explain how the game works. Before beginning a round, all the players must pay 2 credits in the game pot and 1 credit in the Sabacc pot. There are 2 pots in Corellian Spike. If a player wins a round, he takes the main pot, and if he wins with a hand value of 0, a Sabacc, he wins the Sabacc pot also. All the players get 2 cards from the dealer, beginning with the player on the dealer's left. Then the remaining cards in the deck are placed face down and become the draw pile. The first card from the draw pile is put face up next to the draw pile. The players can bet once before the first turn of the round begins. After the setup, the first phase begins, the draw phase. The player on the dealer's left begins and calculates his hand. She has 5 available options. She can take the first card from the draw pile by paying 1 credit, exchange a card from her hand with the first card from the draw pile, take the face-up card by paying 2 credits, exchange a card from her hand with the face-up card, or do nothing. The first player's hand is +8, -9, total value of -1. The face-up card is a +1, which would make her hand with a value of 0. She decides to take the face-up card, pays 2 credits, and adds it to her hand. To replace this card, the dealer reveals the first card from the draw pile and places it next to it to be the new face-up card. The second player's hand is -3, -6, which is not that good. He takes the first card from the draw pile and pays 1 credit to do so. He's not that lucky because that's a -8. The third player's hand has a total value of 0 with -6 and +6, so he decides to do nothing. After this phase comes the betting phase. The first player begins. During the betting phase, there are 4 options. You can call by matching the amount of the highest bet, raise by raising the bet, stand or fold. A player can stand if no one opens the betting round. Players can bet like in a game of poker. The first player has a good hand and bets 1 credit in the game pot. The second player calls at 1 credit. The third player raises at 2 credits. The first and second players call at 2 credits, and then the betting phase comes to a close. After this phase comes the spike phase. The dealer, in that case the third player, rolls the dice. The symbols don't match, so all the players can keep their hands. A second turn begins with the first player. She decides to do nothing. The second player exchanges his -8 with a new card from the draw pile and discards his former card. He gets a +10, giving his hand a total value of +1. The third player does nothing as well. Now it's the betting phase. The first player decides to bet 1 credit, called by the second player. The third player raises at 5 credits. The first 2 players call at 5 credits. The second spike phase begins and the dealer rolls the dice. The symbols match. All the players must remember the number of cards, discard their hands on the discard pile, and the dealer gives each player new cards, matching the number of cards from their former hands. Both players 1 and 2 get 3 new cards, and the third player gets 2 new cards. The first player's hand is quite weak, +2, +3 and +4. The second player's hand is 0, -1 and -8. The third player's hand is -3 and +4. The third and last turn begins. Player 1 decides to take a new card from the draw pile and pays 1 credit to do so. She gets a -9, which gives her hand a total value of 0 in 4 cards. The second player wants to exchange his -9 with the first card from the draw pile, and he gets a +9, giving his hand a total value of +1 in 3 cards. The third player thinks that his hand is good enough and does nothing. This is the last betting phase of the round. The first player bets 4 credits. The second player calls. The third player tries to scare the other players and raises at 20 credits. The first player decides to call, but the second player falls. Finally, the dice are rolled in the last spike phase. Hopefully for the first player, the symbols don't match and both players can keep their hands. The first player shows her hand. +2, +3, +4, -9, total value of 0 in 4 cards. The third player reveals his hand. +4, -3, total value of +1. The first player has a hand equal to 0. The second player has the null rec equal to +1, so the first player wins this round. With a hand value of 0, she wins both the game pot and the Sabacc pot. To sum up, a Sabacc Corellian Spike game is played in 3 turns. At the start, all the players get 2 cards. The first turn begins with the 3 phases: draw, betting and spike. The next 2 turns have the same 3 phases, and at the end of the third turn, the player who has the best hand wins the round. Now you're ready to begin a game of Corellian Spike and steal all your opponent's credits. You can find the rulebook made by the Coruscant Tribune in the description, and also the file that will allow you to print the cards by yourself. I hope that you liked this video about Sabacc Corellian Spike. Feel free to leave a like and a comment. You can subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss the next videos made by the Coruscant Tribune. See you soon, and may the force be with you.